Every mother wants to be needed by her child and get the help of doctors in time for him. But sometimes it can take on a terrifying form that threatens the lives of children. Hello, my name is Diana, and today we are going to talk about Munchausen syndrome by proxy and how parents treat their children for non-existent diseases. Munchausen syndrome is a simulated disorder. A person fakes or causes symptoms of a disease to undergo medical exams, treatments, and surgeries. And yes, it was named after the same Munchausen who liked to make up untruths. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or delegated Munchausen syndrome as it was called before, is a psychological disorder where the parents or guardians intentionally cause or aggravate illness or injury to a child in order to gain attention or compassion from others. But to wait may allow us to skip classes, life with such parents is not so easy. It's a difficult task, and we will find out why. The author of the term Munchausen syndrome by proxy is the pediatrician Roy Meadow, who in 1977 described the strange behavior of two mothers. One of them deliberately poisoned her son with a cooking salt. The other caused her child to have an inflammatory process in the kidneys. The people who have that syndrome are clever imitators who mislead even professional doctors. Their children are subjected to unnecessary hospitalization, medical examinations, and surgery. So, who is more likely to do that? In 2017, British scientists analyzed 796 causes of that syndrome published Science 1965. Here's what they found. Almost all the perpetrators were women and the mothers of their victims. Half of them were medical. A third of the performers experienced childhood abuse. Many women with the syndrome had associated psychopathologies: Munchausen syndrome, personality disorder, and depression. Why women became the performers? The main factor of mental illness is domestic violence, and women are more likely to be subjected to violence, including in childhood. According to WHO, 1 in 3 women worldwide is a victim of physical or bed-making violence. Circumstances also encourage women to become performers. Society believes that the child is the mother's sole responsibility. As a rule, in families, it's the mother who decided issues related to the upbringing and health of children, and the father only needs to kick the ball with them. So women with a predisposition to Munchausen syndrome have more opportunities to pursue criminals than men with similar mental health problems. Because when the father comes to mother and says that the child is sick, she sends him to kick the ball. These personality types can invent and cause absolutely any disease, but these always use ways that leave no evidence. And you ask, where are perfect crimes? They are in the mother's clinging hands. So the performers use air deprivation with the help of a plastic bag, withdrawal strokes, adrenal epinephrine, spoiling the doctor-prescribed drugs, failure to provide or intimately medical care. It's not just a disease, but it's a violence under the mask of care. People with this syndrome first cause symptoms in their victims and they save them. As they say, if a person does not need your help, then just create a problem. No, stop, it's a joke, do not do that. Their performers feel needed, because without them, their children will not survive. Receive the attention of others and realize their desire for glory, because selfless people always cause admiration. Parents or guardians with Munchausen syndrome by proxy often have psychological problems or low self-esteem that drive them to attract attention through their child's illness. For example, American Claudine Didi Blanchard had been convincing people for years that her daughter Gypsy Rose had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and the other serious diseases, and also the development gap.
How would you describe your mom?
Unique. I used to always think that maybe she's a little overprotective. And so if I had to say one word about her, it would be overprotective.
This way, the woman managed to attract the attention of sympathetic neighbors to celebrities and also get help from philanthropists. They transferred her money, built a house, and paid for the trip to Disneyland. This allowed Didi to feel needed and constantly bathed in the rays of attention, support, and glory. Didi deceived doctors. For example, said that the medical documents of her daughter disappeared during the Hurricane Katrina, and if they began to suspect something untrue, looked for new ones. She also kept her daughter's age low, so that she could look after her as much as possible. Gypsy Rose had to be on a wheelchair and eat through a rope. At her mother's insistence, she even had her salivary glands removed.
I really didn't think any abuse was going on. It's like when you're abused, but you live that way your whole life, you don't really know that you're being abused. You don't know any different.
It ended very sadly. Gypsy had long believed that she was seriously ill, but when her mother handcuffed her to the bed and used physical violence, the girl began planning to send her to the kingdom of Hades.
It was a rough year. I call that the bad times. She had taken this dog leash and clipped it to a pair of handcuffs and then clipped the handcuffs to the bed and it was like that for about 2 weeks. My mom had actually convinced a lawyer to draw up some papers saying that I was incompetent. So I thought if I had tried to go to the police, they'd look at these papers and say, she's retarded. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
She was helped with this by her boyfriend Nicholas Godejohn, whom she met online.
It really didn't come up like, I want you to kill her. But he had said, I'll protect you from anybody. And I said, anybody? And he said, yeah. And I said, even my mom? And he said, yeah. And that's where it kind of developed from there on.
After the crime, young people tried to escape, but were eventually arrested. And by the way, recently this girl was released. Her ex-boyfriend, who sent her mother to the kingdom of Hades, got life imprisonment. I think that's fair. Gypsy did not commit the crime herself. She asked for it directly or indirectly, and it makes sense that Nicholas got a longer term, because I remind you that to think, ask for, and do are the different things. By the way, about this case, there is an interesting mini-serial act, which I recommend to view for all who like films about manipulation and crimes. Munchausen syndrome is referred to as a borderline mental disorder. Those who have it are impulsive, low self-control, high anxiety and desocialization, but they understand what they're doing. That's why many people with this syndrome, after being exposed, are criminally responsible for their crimes. The problem is that diagnosis and treatment of this syndrome is very difficult. The parents themselves, for obvious reasons, do not want to go to a psychotherapist and get rid of the syndrome, because it is simply not profitable. In their mind, it will only push them out of the zone of fame and support into a place where they are not needed without suffering because of caring for a sick child. And doctors who notice that someone has this syndrome can only make a note on the card, talk to person, but cannot force him to undergo treatment, just as a specialist cannot remove the child's organs from custody until his life is in danger. So, about some of people with Munchausen syndrome, including Didi Blanchard, doctors in internal documents did write about this syndrome, but as we know, in that case, these people just switch doctor to a next doctor. and they get away with it until they cross the line of law in some particularly scary way. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is one of the most deadly forms of child abuse. Scientists analyzed 451 cases of this syndrome, where the average duration of contact between children and Munchausen mothers was 22 months. By this time, 6% of children had already gone to the kingdom of Hades, and 7% had serious complications. You know how the Didi and Gypsy Blanchard case was ended, but there are other outcomes when government intervene in time without bringing the conflict to a head. For example, in 2013, Blanca Montana was sentenced to 13 years in prison for mistreating her own children. She was accused of intentionally infecting her child with the fecal bacteria. In 2011, Blanca's children were hospitalized with flu, but if the son was soon discharged, the daughter became worse. During the months, doctors identified 9 different rare infections in a 7-month-old girl, which eventually led to her being placed in intensive care. The doctors noticed that the patient's condition worsened every time she was alone with her mother, and suspecting they were dealing with Munchausen syndrome by proxy, they put a camera in the ward. The tapes showed how Montana polluted medical consumables that were supposed to be sterile. When Blanca was arrested, her daughter quickly recovered. That's all for today. Thank you for spending your time on me. I give my regards to everyone who doesn't attribute illnesses to other people. Subscribe, make likes, write comments, and learn new with me. Good luck to all. Bye.